हेलो एवरीवन, जय हिंद एंड वेलकम टू द प्लेटफॉर्म ऑफ श्रीराम्स आईएएस। आप सभी का स्वागत है श्रीराम्स आईएएस के प्लेटफॉर्म पर। एंड इन टुडेज सेशन विल बी डिस्कसिंग अबाउट व्हाट नॉट टू आंसर इन द यूपीएससी इंटरव्यू। इसके बारे में हम बात करेंगे, व्हाट यू शुड नॉट आंसर। जनरली व्हाट हैपेंस इज दैट हमारी आदत होती है ना, वी हैव दिस हैबिट whenever we are saying or we are iterating something, we say I'm 100% sure, all right, and ultimately that creates a negative influence in the in mind of the board as well. So कुछ चीजें ऐसी हैं जो कि हमें आपका इंटरव्यू में आपका नहीं बोलनी चाहिए, नहीं करनी चाहिए, उसके बारे में ही आज के सेशन में हम बात करेंगे। Along with me, my name is Bhavar Singh Suri. I am ex-India 115th course and also qualified civil services in 2012. अब यहां पर सबसे पहले बात करते हैं कि बोर्ड की प्रायोरिटी क्या है, व्हाट द बोर्ड इज असेसिंग इन यू, जो कि मैं आपको बहुत बार पहले भी बता चुका हूं। द बोर्ड वांट्स टू सी द मैच्योरिटी इन योर थिंकिंग, the balance in your perspective, and even the honesty and integrity, and also the responsible decision making that you have. क्योंकि यही सारे वो ट्रेड्स हैं जो आपको एक बेटर एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर आपका बनाते हैं। एंड इफ यू डिविएट फ्रॉम दीज क्वालिटीज, any behavior that is moving beyond this quality, you are deviating from these qualities, so ultimately you get penalized and आपके marks जो है वो cut हो जाते हैं। So you have to understand that this is the board's priority. They assess you on these patterns or on these factors that they are assessing. Now, coming to what you should not answer or what you should not say in front of the board. The first thing is never answer that is beyond your knowledge. आपको जितना पता है, जो पता है उसका जवाब दें, ठीक है। लेकिन अगर आपको नहीं पता है, आपको ये लगेगा अगर मैंने आंसर नहीं दिया तो फिर क्या होगा। See, I already told you that this is not test of your knowledge. This is basically a test of your administrative ethos. It is test of whether you are fit to be an administrator or not. So it is very important that you should remember that you should not do the guesswork there. Avoid guessing, because random answers, they will expose your shallow preparation. At the same time, there should be no bluffing as well, because if you are fabricating the facts, if you are fabricating things, what will happen is that you will get easily caught, and at the same time, do not make up facts. The incorrect data will destroy your credibility. और एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर को आप एक क्रेडिबल भी चाहेंगे, है ना। ही मस्ट बी अ क्रेडिबल पर्सन हु इज होल्डिंग द चेयर ऑफ द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव ऑफिस। At the same time, avoid overconfidence as well, because if you do the overconfidence or if you show the overconfidence and unsubstantiated claims, that signals that there is arrogance in your personality. So it is always important to note that if you do not know, just say so. I'm sorry sir, I do not know about this, because that is a gentle response, and never answer that is beyond your knowledge. Now, bluffing is penalized, and ultimately that will lead to minus 20-30 marks from your personality test. Now, why I'm saying this? Because that will show lack of integrity. That is the core trait of a civil servant. Okay, if you are civil servant, so ultimately in a civil servant we will want that he should be integrated part, a personality. He should show the integrity in his personality. So ultimately, if you are bluffing, that shows that there is lack of integrity, that shows poor judgment, and that shows even flawed thinking as well. ठीक है, bluffing अगर आप करते हैं, ठीक है। इसी के साथ साथ अगर हम बात करें तो you cannot be trusted with power or authority if you are bluffing. When you are holding a public office, you cannot bluff. And what the interview is all about, it is a personality test to check whether you are the right person for the administrative office or not. All right, and also there is a trust destroyed as you bluff, and ultimately the board will lose the confidence in you. So that is very, very important that the bluffing should not be there. You should not answer something that is beyond your knowledge. Now, the another thing is that you have to avoid the extremes as well. All right, like for example, we say media is useless. All right, we all know that what is happening right now, but we say media is useless. All right, so we are using an extreme word that shows that there is a binary thinking. As well as we say the politicians are corrupt. So as soon as you are generalizing the statement, All right, that is also something that should not be done in front of the board. And also, like for example, privatization is bad. So that is, inflexible ideology, जहां पर आप flexible ही नहीं है. और मैंने आपको बोला कि you should be able to comprehend different viewpoints if you want to be an administrative officer. At the same time, if you are saying the police is inefficient, so that shows disrespectful and it is a blanket statement. So again, हमेशा ध्यान रखना कि whenever you are answering in front of the board, your extreme statements are actually the immaturity in your personality that is not tolerated by the board members. Then there are certain institutions, जिनको मैं बोलूंगा, they are protected institutions. You should never criticize the institutions. Please remember, you can criticize the policies, you can criticize the programs, but never ever criticize these institutions when you are there in the board. Never criticize the government bodies which are there, judiciary as well, the armed forces, civil services, and election commission or the constitution bodies that are there. You can criticize their policies, you can criticize the programs, the frameworks, but never any institution in your interview. Please remember this thing, because sometimes what happens is that, see, मैं आपको बहुत clearly ये बताता हूँ कि this is an interview technique. What happens in interview is that as you enter the interview room, there would be certain questions that would be asked and you will be made comfortable, all right, and you will think, oh my god, मैं तो ऐसे ही डर रहा था. इंटरव्यू तो बहुत, मतलब ऐसा लग रहा है बचपन के जो बिछड़े दोस्त हैं वो मिल गए हैं मेरे को. ठीक है, दैट इज द टेक्निक ऑफ द इंटरव्यू, क्योंकि वो आपका असली चेहरा देखना चाहते हैं. एंड अल्टीमेटली दे विल मेक यू रिलैक्स, and as you relax, sometimes we commit these mistakes which I am talking about right now, and that is why it is very important that you should make a note of it. All right, make a note of it. And ultimately, if you are criticizing the institutions, all right, so that shows immaturity again, that cannot be tolerated in a civil servant. The next thing is, never give the moral lectures. All right, like for example, corruption must end totally. That shows a very unrealistic idealism. All right, or people should be honest. All right, it is preachy. You are preaching something. It is not practical. All right, and at the same time, youth are misguided. All right, so ultimately, you should not give any kind of moral lectures when you are there in front of the board, because the board wants the administrative pragmatism. All right, there have to be a practical way and practical approach to different situations. You cannot give the moral advices, moral lectures, all right, and that shows that you have a philosophical idealism, and ultimately we do not want that in the administrative offices. All right, the next thing is you have to avoid the emotional answers as well. All right, avoid them. Like for example, never show anger, because that shows that you do not have self-control over yourself. Also, do not ever have anything said that is sarcastic and very sharp sarcastically said, because that signals disrespect and immaturity as well. At the same time, frustration. You may be frustrated, all right. They are answering, they are asking the questions, आपको grill कर रहे हैं, बार-बार पूछ रहे हैं, and it may happen that you get frustrated. And ultimately, if you are showing the frustration, that says that you have inability to handle that pressure, which you will be encountering every day after entering into the office. All right, and also do not show the fear, because that shows or that reveals that you do not have the confidence. So when it comes to the emotional imbalances, when it comes to emotional imbalances, अगर आप कहीं पर भी अपने answers में emotional imbalance को show करते हैं, तो that means that you do not have the required administrative temperament, and ultimately your marks are cut accordingly. All right, next rule is never to defend your background aggressively. कई बार ऐसा होता है कि आपसे आपके बैकग्राउंड के बारे में पूछा जाता है. सपोज करो आपके जो है देयर आर मार्क्स विच आर फॉलिंग, ठीक है, मार्क्स लगातार आपके कम हो रहे हैं और वहां पर आप उसको डिफेंड कर रहे हो. ठीक है, वंस और ट्वाइस इट्स ओके, बट डू नॉट डिफेंड इट एग्रेसिवली और ए डिफेंसिव टोन that that gives you a low marks. That is very, very important. You have to accept your record. Whatever the record that you have filled in the DAF, you have to accept it factually without over explaining. At the same time, long explanations are, they are not justified. If you are giving long justifications about your job gaps, you are, justifying, over-justifying yourself. So that is also something that you have to refrain. All right, you have to be brief and there have to be honest reasons if there had been any gaps in your job, gap in your education. So you have to be brief and honest. That you have to remember. And also, like I said, over-justifying your failures is one of the, again, thing that you have to not commit in your interview. All right, so these are the things, and the right approaches whenever you are talking about your background. You have to be factual and not apologetic or not defensive about your background. The next rule is never to contradict your DAF. I told you in my previous session as well that your DAF or the detailed application form is actually the first impression. You have to fill it up very, in a proper manner and in a thoughtful manner, and whatever you have written in your DAF. I told you that 70% of your interview would be based on your DAF and you do not have to contradict yourself. ठीक है, अपने DAF को आपको बहुत अच्छे से पढ़ना है और जो आपने उसमें लिखा है सिर्फ वही आपको जो है वहां पर बताना है. Now there are certain mistakes what happens. Alright, आपको जैसे ही पता चलता है DAF और आप अंदर जा रहे हैं तो हम क्या करते हैं, हम अपने आप को बड़ा चढ़ाकर दिखाने की कोशिश करते हैं, अरे मैं ही सुटेबल हूं टू बी एन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव ऑफिसर. एंड व्हाट हैपेंस इन दैट इज दैट वी रीराइट आवर कंप्लीट स्टोरी मिड इंटरव्यू. जो हमने डीएफ में लिखा हुआ है उससे हम भटक जाते हैं और अपनी पूरी स्टोरी कोई दूसरी ही स्टोरी वहां पर बोर्ड को सुना देते हैं. तो इसलिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आप अपने डीएफ तक ही सीमित रहें जो डीएफ में आपने लिखा है. यस, आफ्टर फिलिंग द डीएफ, if you achieved something, ठीक है, suppose you have filled the DF today, आज आपने DF fill किया, आपका इंटरव्यू जो है वो आपका 2 महीने बाद है, एंड इन 2 महीने में आपको कोई बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट मिलता है, आपको कोई ऐसी चीज मिलती है जो आप बोर्ड के सामने रख सकते हैं, वो बिल्कुल ठीक है. लेकिन DF भरने तक आज जो आपने भर दिया है उससे पहले की आपकी स्टोरी दैट शुड नॉट change, and there should be no another story in front of the board except from what you have written in the DF. And what we commit is that we exaggerate our hobbies and interests. तो उनको exaggerate नहीं करना है, ठीक है. And also do not change the stated preference. जो आपने preference दी है, चाहे वो cadre की है, चाहे वो आपका choice of service है, and do not make any unverifiable claims. क्योंकि जब भी आप DF से परे जाते हैं या फिर DF से आप इनकंसिस्टेंट हो जाते हैं तो दैट मीन्स दैट द क्रेडिबिलिटी इज लो, आपके ऊपर उतना भरोसा नहीं किया जा सकता और अल्टीमेटली आप खुद भी ये चाहेंगे और खुद भी ये सोचेंगे कि इफ देयर इज एन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर वो वैसा हो जिसके अंदर क्रेडिबिलिटी हो. एंड अल्टीमेटली दैट इज व्हाई आई एम टेलिंग यू व्हाट मिस्टेक्स और व्हाट यू शुड नॉट आंसर इन फ्रंट ऑफ द बोर्ड. नेक्स्ट रूल इज नेवर टू इंटरप्ट द बोर्ड. ये हम बहुत बार करते हैं, ठीक है, ये हमारे अंदर ये आदत होती है, ठीक है, और ये आदत बचपन से पड़ जाती है. अब बचपन से क्यों पड़ती है मैं आपको बता देता हूं, ठीक है. देयर इज अ प्रॉपर फिलॉसफी एंड प्रॉपर रीजन बिहाइंड व्हाई आई एम टेलिंग यू कि नेवर इंटरप्ट द बोर्ड, एंड दिस इज अ हैबिट बिकॉज व्हाट हैपेंस इज वी ऑलवेज वांट टू इंप्रेस आवर टीचर्स. ऑलराइट, हम हमेशा इंप्रेस करना चाहते हैं. तो उसकी वजह से क्या होता है कि व्हेन वी आर इन द क्लासरूम इन द as child, so we always raise the hand, excuse me ma'am, excuse me sir, and before even finishing the subject. और ये आपने पढ़ाई के दौरान भी देखा होगा, if you have been into the coaching, physical coaching या फिर आपका जो है online coaching, before the topic ends, sir ये मेरा डाउट था, इसमें ऐसे कैसे होगा, अभी कंप्लीट तो होने दो, ठीक है. तो ये जो हमारे अंदर जो आदत पड़ जाती है ना इंटरप्शन की, ये बहुत गलत आदत होती है, ये आपको समझना है. बिकॉज दैट शोज और दैट सिग्नल्स एरोगेंस इन द पर्सनैलिटी एंड द लैक ऑफ रिस्पेक्ट टुवर्ड्स द बोर्ड मेंबर. दैट शोज दैट यू हैव पुअर लिसनिंग स्किल्स एंड यू आर अनेबल टू प्रोसेस completely or fully because you have not heard the board completely, and also that shows that you have emotional immaturity and you cannot control your impulses. तो इसीलिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि जो बोर्ड मेंबर है, वॉट एवर द बोर्ड मेंबर इज सेइंग, लेट देम फिनिश कंप्लीटली. जो पेशेंस है दैट विल रिवॉर्ड यू, प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट विल रिवॉर्ड यू, एंड दैट ऑल्सो demonstrate that you have a complete maturity when it comes to being a civil servant. Next thing is avoid over explaining. जब भी long answers हम देते हैं तो that leads to boring the panel. They lose the focus in between. So do not over explain, do not give the long answers, keep them crisp, keep them short but to the point. That is very, very important. And also the circular reasoning confuses rather than clarifying anything. Alright. And there should not be, when we are talking about defensive rambling, alright, that exposes the insecurity and nervousness. So it is important that whenever you are answering, you have to think about the structure of the answer that you will be giving. The structure should be the same. Just like I told you, the structure is the same in the manner that you have written the mains examination. There have to be introduction, there have to be body and conclusion. So in the same manner, you will be following the same sequence. But at the same time, it should be short, structured answer that will show the clarity of thought in front of the board members. The next rule is never to show the overconfidence. I told you that ये हमेशा होता है. Whenever we are saying something, we say, I am 100% sure this happened. Alright. So using I am 100% sure, that eliminates the room for learning or the room for the doubts. Alright. At the same time, we also use this jargon very frequently. This is the only solution. This is the only solution. Alright. So ultimately that ignores the complexity of the real world problem, and again that has to be avoided, or I will fix this completely. Alright. So these are unrealistic promises that we make in front of the board, and you have to understand that this overconfidence kills you in the interview, because this is quite risky and ultimately you may lose points if you are showing the overconfidence in your answers. At the same time, you must remember to avoid the coached language. Now, when I'm saying coached language, these are the language, or this is the way you are structuring as you must have read and you have mucked up from any book. So, like for example, I'm saying India is a land of diversity. Alright, so this is overused cliche phrase that we are using. Or as an aspirant, I believe. Alright, as an aspirant or as a civil servant, civil services aspirant, I believe. So ultimately that sounds to be rehearsed and even artificial. I believe. Alright, or I think, that is suffice. Alright, or sir, with all due humility. That's forced politeness. Alright, जब भी हम बात करते हैं, sir, with all due respect. Why? Just start with your answer. So that is very, very important, that you have to be authentic. Alright, you have to be authentic when you are answering in front of the board, and original thinking will always let you score higher than the coached language that is there. The next thing is that you have to avoid sensitive personal views, or the high risk topics when it comes to the personal views are religion. Alright, you have to maintain secular neutrality. At the same time, caste. Avoid any caste biased opinions. The ideology, stay politically neutral, as well as gender and religion, because these are the things that where we are respecting the constitutional values. So you have to avoid the sensitive personal views, and you have to be neutral, as well as you have to show that you are thinking inclusively and you are not thinking exclusively. Alright. Now, there are certain classified matters as well which you have to avoid any comments on them. Like for example, the military operations, where you are discussing any sensitive data related to the security. Then the intelligence agencies, where confidential methodologies are discussed. At the same time, the classified data which is restricted, or the internal security, where we are discussing about the strategic operation. Alright, so these are the things that you should avoid any comments on. Alright, stay strictly within the knowledge boundary that you have, and that is what you have to remember. Now, next thing is never give negative or cynical answers. India cannot change, or the state of or the government of Uttar Pradesh cannot change. Alright, so that is a defeatist attitude, and you do not have to show that defeatist attitude in front of the board. At the same time, corruption is unstoppable. Alright, yes, we know it is unstoppable, but there are certain measures that we can take to stop that corruption. So if you are saying corruption is unstoppable, that is that you have no hopes left in your mind, and a hopeless administrator is not that the India will want in future, right? And at the same time, youth are directionless. That will show that you have a negativity, blanket negativity. Again, you should never give negative or cynical answers to the board, and we cannot be cynics being an administrator. Alright, so you have to think positive, you have to have a have a positive bent of mind and not negative bent of mind being a civil servant. So that is again very, very important, and also never flatter the board. Or sometimes what you do is, like I said, so with all due respect, or we say, your question is excellent, sir. Alright, so never flatter the board. The board is there to judge you, and you are not there to flatter them. So never say that your question is excellent, this is the best board I could have, or I am honored to be here with you. So these type of, forced flattering will, that will not lead you to anywhere. That will not lead you to anywhere. Respect is not equal to flattering the board. Alright, you have to respect the board, you have to pay the respect whenever you are saying, whatever you are saying, you have to say it with respect and with poise. But at the same time, you do not have to flatter the board. Be genuine, courteous when you are appearing in front of the board. Alright, avoid commenting on the what should UPSC do. Alright, we are not there when we are talking about the UPSC. You may be asked, okay, you have gone through the prelims, mains, as well as now you are in the interview. What is one thing that you will like UPSC to change in future? Alright, if such kind of questions are asked, never comment or avoid comment. Alright, like for example, UPSC should change the optionals. So we are not policy makers. We are not policy, we cannot change policy yet. So ultimately, the policy changes is not your role that you have to suggest. At the same time, we may over there say that UPSC should reduce the attempts. Alright, we are overstepping the boundaries over here. Alright, or interview process needs reform. So that is inappropriate criticism, and that again you should refrain from saying in front of the board. So you are the interviewee. Alright, right now you are the interviewee, you are not the reformer, you are not a reviewer, or you have to stay in your lane. That is what is required. So ये चीज ध्यान रखना है कि UPSC को कभी भी ये नहीं बताना है कि UPSC को क्या करना चाहिए. Alright, this is one of the prominent question which is also asked in the SSB interview as well. Alright, you have stayed over here for the 5 days. Now, what thing or what suggestions that you want to give? So, आपसे पूछा जाता है, do not give suggestions. Simple. So, I find that the whole the process is very good, and I think that the prelims, the mains, as well as the interview, that gives a holistic approach, and that lets the right candidates to be, they filled in the vacancies, and that is why I am whole trustworthy about the process. That's it. All right. Just say that you trust the process and do not give any suggestions. Now, also avoid the absolutist language that is important. All right. So these are certain words that you should not use. Like for example, always. Okay. So always अगर हम बोल रहे हैं, तो that means that there is zero exceptions that exist. At the same time, never. That will suggest the absolute certainty. All right. Must, that removes the room for nuance, as well as only, that reflects the narrow perspective. So these are certain words, always, never, must, only. ये rigid thinking को आपका signify करते हैं. That you think in rigid manner. You are not flexible, but at the same time, UPSC values flexibility and even a balanced personality. तो इसलिए ये words use नहीं करने हैं. ठीक है, ध्यान रखो और इसको note कर लो, बहुत important है. Alright, and then we actually, what is the supreme law of the country? It is the constitution. Alright, so we have to value and align with the constitutional values which are there. We have to be, अगर हम बात करते हैं, the statement which oppose the affirmative action, they contradict the constitutional provision, तो आपको कभी भी anti reservation नहीं होना है. Maybe you will be asked in the in the interview about reservation policies or the reservation that is there. You have to be broad-minded and not anti-reservationist. Alright, same way, you should not be anti-secular. Alright, you have to, go with the fabric of the secularism that we have in India, and even you should not be anti-federalism. ठीक है, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अलाइनमेंट है ये आपका हर रेस्पॉन्स में होना चाहिए, और ये चीज आपने देखी होगी इन योर मेंस ऑल्सो. ठीक है, तो मेंस में भी हम कभी भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज के अगेंस्ट नहीं जाते. इन द सेम मैनर व्हेन यू आर देयर इन द इंटरव्यू, नेवर go against the constitutional values which are there. Next thing is you have to maintain objectivity about people. Alright, when it comes to personal judgments, they have no place in your answers. You cannot have personal judgments because you will be an administrator in the future. तो आपको ये ध्यान रखना है कि आपको जो है ऑब्जेक्टिविटी रखनी है. When you are talking about the political leaders, focus on the policies and governance and not on the different personalities. Alright, so that you have to remember. At the same time, when you are talking about the social activists, you have to discuss their movements, discuss their impact, and not what individual motives they had. In the same manner, when you are talking about any bureaucrat, analyze the system and the processes that they worked on and not any personal conduct. And at the same time, when it comes to any public figure, always evaluate the contributions that they made to the society objectively without any biasness that is required. तो कभी भी आपको क्या करना है, आपको जो है biased नहीं होना है, आपको उनके ऊपर personal comments नहीं करने हैं when you are there in the interview. And over here, your personal opinions that they do not matter. Because over here, the UPSC is looking for a proper analytical objectivity in you. And now, last but not least, what you should not answer, and the one answer that you must never give, that is never pretend you know something you don't. This is very, very important, alright? Because when I'm talking about bluffing, that will lead to at least 20 to 40 marks that will be lost from your personal interview. So honesty about the knowledge is very, very important, and it shows that you are you can be trusted. There is an integrity in your personality and also self-awareness that is very important that UPSC values in the civil servants. So that is why it is very important. This is the one answer that you must never give in front of board where you do not know anything about the subject matter. When you don't know, acknowledge gracefully. Alright, do not be harsh or arrogant if you don't know. Just say, I'm sorry sir, I do not have any idea about this. Alright, I'll go back and I will study about this particular issue that you have asked me. So these are the things that you have to keep in your mind while being in the interview and in front of the interview board. And ultimately, please make a note of all these things, because ultimately you will see that these will do wonders and you will score a better marks in your interview through these guidance. Alright. Ultimately, we have interview guidance program at SRIRAM's IAS as well that you can take advantage of, and ultimately you will do wonders and you will be provided with the complete feedback about your interview. There will be a mock interview that would be conducted, and for this you can register at SRIRAM's IAS by calling on this number. Alright, this is the number over here, 9811 489 560. If you want, I'll write it over here, 9811 489 560. You can call on this number and you can register for the interview guidance program at SRIRAM's IAS, or you can simply scan the code. There is a QR code and you can scan it and then register for the interview guidance program. So that would be all in today's video and this lesson about your interview. What all things you should not answer or not say or keep in mind while you are answering in front of the interview board. So that would be all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care and Jai Hind. I wish you all the best for your upcoming interviews. Thank you. Bye and Jai. Thank you.